Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and a study was sent to me that just came out this month. Actually, this video may not even be out for like a week or two. I'm so far ahead on these, but I'm just knocking them out all day long now. This study was sent to me, and this is one of those to where people like Athlean-X need to see this, because this is stuff that I say that actually a lot of coaches say. And then you see some of these people up here having athletes hop around on one leg and do all this silly one-legged shit. And you see tons of strength coaches saying, hey, this actually isn't a good idea. I'm one of the people who repeatedly says this isn't a good idea. It doesn't even work that well. But then you have really, really famous people like Jeff Cavaliere who says things like put the science back into strength, right? Put the science back into strength. As if what he does is actually necessarily based on science. I'm not saying his physical therapy isn't, but his strength training isn't. And that's why his guys aren't strong. That's why I've said this repeatedly. Again, strength training and strength coaching is its own mentality, and he's just not that sort of person. It's not in his personality, it's not in his nature, and it's certainly not in his wheelhouse. He doesn't get guys strong. And he's sure he's a great physical therapist, but that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. And he's just one of many out there. And this is stuff that's been brought up when you see coaches doing this, and they want to do all this because, well, it's more sport specific. We hop around on one leg. And so you start looking at studies like this when it compares to what real coaches say that, look, it doesn't actually work. Some of the top strength and conditioning coaches in the world say, look, that doesn't actually work. So then you have these studies, and then look at it. They took an 18-week study, 33 trained participants. They were trained. They wanted to see how doing one-legged strength, like doing the one-legged exercises to build as much leg strength as they could with it, versus doing squats, doing heavy squats. All right, and these are done twice a week. Squatting twice a week compared to one-legged exercises. All right, then they compared at the end of it to see how much difference it made. Now, what it says, both groups improved 20-meter squat. However, the difference between the groups was unclear, right? It was unclear, but look at the time difference. The bilateral was still a greater reduction in their 20-meter time, right? It's just that it was such a small average micro amount of seconds that it was almost unmeasurable. So it's, again, statistically insignificant. So you got to look at the statistics, statistically insignificant. Even though it was better, it was such a small amount that it could have been within the margin of error. And so from that perspective, it may not be enough of a difference to matter. But we're talking about, again, fractions of a second at this point, as far as any of the improvement. Now, if we were to just look at the raw data and say, but did the people who did squats instead of one-legged exercises, did they actually get slightly better at their 20-meter sprint? Yes, they did. It was just a statistically insignificant difference in how much better they did. But they were better. Let's make that clear. But again, because it's not statistically significant, you can't draw a lot from that, other than to say, well, they did seem to be slightly better. But all good coaches know that anyways, don't they? And when it comes to any other sport besides just sprinting, it comes to any contact sport, you damn well need your back to be as strong as possible. Like, I'll tell you right now, if you're taking a contact sport athlete and you're having them do one-legged exercises instead of developing their core by doing everything under a heavy squat, you are not looking out for that athlete's best interest. But I digress. Only slightly better. However, COD, change of direction performance. This is the big one. This was the big one. Change of direction performance, which is what all of these guys like Jeff say, oh, these field athletes, they need to be able to change direction. They need to be able to pivot off of one foot. We need to do these one-legged exercises. Squats crushed the one-legged exercises for improvements in change of direction. All right? It shows. So we're coming down to the point of getting strong versus trying to use your strength training, your real strength training, as a sport-specific adaptation doesn't always work. In other words, you're going to get stronger with a barbell squat. I don't care what silly shit you think you're doing with one leg. you will absolutely not develop as much overall strength. You can argue about quad strength or whatever all day long, but what athlete only uses their legs? Like, what sport in the world do you think that only your leg strength is used, even if you use your legs? Do you think all your hip and core and everything else don't matter to everything else? You don't think those things matter for pivoting or even changing directions quickly? You don't think that stuff matters? I think it does. You know what? I think your obliques and your abdominals and your hips and all of these things matter. I think they matter for changing direction. I think those muscles are used as part of it. And I think the more powerful, more explosive they are, probably helps. And that's what a squat does. It improves all of those better. It does make you stronger than a silly ass one-legged exercise. You look at that change of direction number, it dominated it. Why? Because they were overall stronger. They were overall stronger. They got stronger more effectively through their whole body. Because anything you're doing with athletes, your entire body matters. There is almost no sport, and certainly no field sport, in which you only use 3 or 4 muscles at a time. What a bunch of absurd bullshit. To think that you want to try to isolate stuff. You need to get as strong as possible within your mobility and within your weight limits. You know, at a certain point, obviously, if you're getting so strong that you're gaining so much weight, or your strength training is impeding your recovery so much that you can't do sport-specific stuff, that's a problem. But outside of that, getting stronger is a real good idea. You know, up to a certain threshold. Well, they got stronger, and therefore they were better. The one-legged stuff didn't work as well, and it doesn't work as well. Doesn't work as well. And most real coaches do understand that. And the reason you have a lot of coaches who don't want to do the big movements is, simply put, they don't know how to coach them, they don't know how to train them, they don't know how to program them. It's exactly what it is. And I think it's very obvious, because look at how many of these coaches who do prescribe these one-legged things, you actually look at their squat programs. They're pretty bad, aren't they? They're pretty bad. But here you have it. I mean, you've got data right there. The study actually looking at it, because, you know, people at the university decided, hey, maybe we should study this, because, you know, we have a lot of scholarship athletes here. Maybe we need to make sure they're getting better. Barbell squat dominated. It was better at actually improving performance in the one thing that all these one-legged exercise gurus claimed that they needed to do the one-legged exercises for. The people who did the barbell squats instead of the one-legged stuff got better at it. And it's not like the one-legged guys didn't improve their strength. Their legs got a lot stronger. But they didn't get stronger overall as much. And it sure mattered when they had to measure change of direction speed. So people come back and tell me that this doesn't matter, that squat strength isn't more important than these silly one-legged exercises for field athletes. Because you know what? What do field athletes have to do? What is some of the most important stuff their legs do? Sprint and be able to change direction quickly. The barbell squat was superior. Absolutely superior. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a power lifter. I'm saying that because every coach around the world who works with real athletes realizes this. They realize this. And here you have it. So when we talk about things like putting the science back into strength, and then you want to ignore data like this, people want to ignore data like this, and they want to tell people like me that we're wrong. Well, where's your proof? Where's your proof? In fact, some of the guys who are coaching this other stuff, their athletes aren't improving. If you're giving an athlete who has a $5 million contract and certain stats, and you have them start doing one-legged exercises and they don't improve, they don't get better, they stay the same, it sounds like what you did didn't work. So that's not proof. Here you got proof. So again, why are people, when we see data like this, and you know the best coaches still say this, and a lot of the best coaches have said this for decades, they've been making fun of this stuff. Now it's been studied, it's been looked at. Doesn't pan out in the real world with real coaches. Doesn't pan out in the studies. Why would anyone believe it? The anecdote and the science is showing that the bilateral movements are better. They're showing that they're better. When you don't even have good anecdote to even show the other. other than a few coaches have a theory, a hypothesis that they think it might be better because of X reason, but their hypothesis doesn't pan out in the real world, and it doesn't even pan out in testing. It's bullshit. It's pseudoscience. It's garbage. All right. So that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.